Favorite movie and why?
Any of the old school Adam Sandler movies. I know it's broad, but I'm not a big movie guy. Like, I don't have the attention span for them. But if I see like a Happy Gilmore or any of those, I'll sit there and just watch the whole thing and laugh the whole time.
I'm the same way. So embarrassing. Like the
like Billy Madison with the soap, like
totally
it gets me every time.
Every time. The cameo by Chris Farley where he's like, that Vanessa Vaughn, her and I got it on. He's like, no, you didn't. He's like, but I had a friend. Yeah, he's like, no, you didn't. He's like, but you can imagine. And I probably replayed that line with my friends in the Army 500 times, right? We'd see some good-looking girl at the bar, and I'd be like, her and I. And you're like, no, you didn't. It's like, yeah, but my friend from the 2nd Division, he did. No, he did. No, he did.
Yeah,
that's
all
good
that stuff was, they're all classics.
Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Scott Groves with the On the Edge podcast. I'm here with a buddy of mine I met about a year ago when I moved up here to Vegas, Beau McDougall. And what I love about Beau is that he is a fire captain with Las Vegas Fire Department, but also owns a real estate brokerage, which to me are like two very in-depth, time-consuming, challenging jobs. Somehow he does them both. And I wanted to have Beau on for a couple of reasons. Just, this whole year of 2024, the On the Edge podcast, we're going to be doing more finance, real estate, mortgage, business-oriented podcasts. So that way I feel more comfortable emailing these out to our list of 20,000 loan officers and realtors and clients. But also just to kind of get a take on what's going on in the financial world. There's this landmark lawsuit that just happened in real estate. So I want to dig into this because I have my own opinions about it selfishly.
You're talking about the Halloween Massacre?
Yeah, the Halloween Massacre lawsuit in, where was that at? St. Louis, Philadelphia?
It was in Missouri.
Missouri, okay, yeah, okay, perfect. So yeah, we're going to dive into that. We're going to talk about the market. We're going to talk about why the market's not crashing. We're going to talk about where interest rates were, where they're going, what's going on with real estate. But first of all, how does one find time to do fire captain and real estate manager and sell real estate and open your own brokerage? Like, do you have any friends or family or dog or health or anything else going on in your life?
Actually, I have a great family, 3 dogs, friends that sometimes see me. But no, I come from a real estate family. My dad's been an appraiser for 40 plus years. My mom's been a realtor, broker, all through the loops. 29 years now. She's hitting her 30th. She's complained that she didn't get that GLVR waiver of education this year by 1 year. So, but yeah, so it was a family business, but they'd gone through the ups and downs of real estate, and they told me, you're not getting into real estate until you have a quote-unquote real job.
Right.
So went through high school. I was actually going to go to medical school, and then started doing the volunteering and stuff like that. Did a lot of time in the ERs, and I saw the fire guys, and they seemed to have a lot better quality of life than the doctors that were just working their lives away. So that's how I kind of got in that path. Went to paramedic school, got in the fire department, Boulder City to Vegas. And then I found out the great thing about the fire department is you're there for a long time, but then they give you a lot of days off. You can either get yourself in trouble, spend a lot of money, or find something else to do. And that's when I decided I'm going to get into real estate, and I got the okay from my parents then.
So I have a little bit of insight into this because Chris, our audio guy, shout out to Chris, who's making this podcast a reality. I only have to get on stage and talk, and then he literally does everything else. The way that I know Chris is he's the younger brother of my best friend since kindergarten, Robert, who's a fire captain down in L.A. And so I know a little bit of, like, we lived together when he first started. It was like one on, one off, one on, one on, and then like 5 days off.
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways you can do it.
Yeah, you work like 4 days a month. He's like, no, dude, it's like 12, but it's like 12 24s.
Yeah, we do 2 days on straight, so 48 hours, then we get 4 days off.
Damn, dude.
So if I can power through those days and then have, a day to kind of decompress and then get through real estate, and, while we're there, we have our roles and responsibilities, but we do get our downtime, and you can either do it by working out, playing PlayStation, sleeping, napping, whatever you want to do. And I just happen to do it by answering my phone and answering some emails.
Yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, you can only watch so many Girls Gone Wild tapes, right? And you can only bench press so much weight. And then if there's no call, there's no call.
There's no call. I mean, I worked downtown for a long time, and even at a busy station, there's time.
Yeah.
Right.
What is that, a busy station? Because you said that you moved from Boulder, where there wasn't a whole lot going on, to like Las Vegas proper. Like, what is a busy fire department?
Yeah, so like Boulder City was great. Every department, every station has their thing, right? Like Boulder City taught me great medicine. I don't think I would be the paramedic I am if I didn't start in Boulder City. But we didn't get a lot of fire, and there wasn't going to be much growth there. It was a single station department at the time. They're getting their second station just now, and I've been gone 13 years.
Got it.
So I transferred to City Las Vegas when they added a lateral. And it's just a bigger department. There's more that do. They have hazmat, technical rescue, bomb squad. And then obviously they have stations in.
Wait, what? The fire department has a bomb squad?
Yeah, so the East Fire is actually the bomb squad for the region. So they're the FBI accredited bomb squad for the region.
What the fuck? I thought that was like some FBI stuff. I didn't know fire department did that.
Yeah, so City of Las Vegas holds that. So
amazing
for the whole region. So you go through the fire department, then you test to be a fire investigator for us, and then those guys end up going to bomb school.
That's amazing, man. Who knew there's so much opportunity in the fire department?
Right? There's so many different avenues, but I got there and I wanted to obviously go straight to the busiest part of town. So I worked on Fremont Street as a paramedic and as a captain for 11 years.
Oh my God. I mean, I have to imagine the excesses of Vegas, people coming here. You know, I was talking to my cardiologist because my family has a horrible health history. And he's like, yeah, I do one rotation a month to like keep my credentialing down at the hospital that services the Strip.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, we'll have a young guy come in who's having a heart attack. Young guys don't have heart attack. And he's like, look, I'm not the police. Just tell me what you did so I can treat you. And the guy will be like, well, you know, I started out with a few hits of ecstasy at the pool party and then I drank all day. But then my girlfriend, you know, wanted to have sex, so I took 3 blue pills.
With the cocaine.
With
to
the
make sure I could
cocaine,
stay up.
Yeah, then I had to stay up, and then I did half an 8-ball. And he's like, yes, that's why your heart is shutting down. So you must see some wild stuff as a paramedic on Fremont Street.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and it's just not Fremont Street. South side is Fremont Street, and then we go to the north side, which is the historic west side. And then we have every homeless shelter. So Station 1 is a very dynamic area. I finally left Station 1. I didn't go far. I went to MLK in Lake Mead.
Okay.
Still close to my home, but instead of 20 people being at my fire station, now it's 6. So it's a little homier.
A little slower. And when you talk about like, you know, hey, you got some downtime to return some real estate calls, you know, pull up some broker price opinions and like do all the realtor stuff when you're at the station. Is a busy day at the station? Is it 1 call? Is it 30 calls? Like how often are you doing the movie shit of like throwing on all the gear and exiting the building?
I would say when I was on a rescue and I was a paramedic, my busiest day, we ran 21 calls with 15 transports to a hospital.
Ooh.
On a fire engine or truck, I think 18 with 3 working fires.
Whoa.
That's a busy day. I mean, average now where I'm at, 7, 8 calls.
In a 24-hour shift.
In a 24-hour shift.
So you'll leave 7 hours, you go treat somebody, take care of somebody, get them to the hospital, hopefully save a life or improve a life, and then back to the station.
Yeah, a lot of stuff we do now is, you know, we work with either our rescue or an ambulance, and we're back to the station pretty quickly unless it's a fire or extrication or something like that, and it could take hours. But for the most part, we're half an hour to an hour per call, and then we're back, you know, cooking, cleaning, working out. You know, that's a great thing about the crew I'm at with now. We work out every day. We work out before we go home. We shop together. We eat together. We make sure that we're on the right path. So it's really like a family. You know, your military experience, the same thing. You have the good groups, the bad groups. Right now, I'm with the really good group.
That's awesome, man. And so how, you know, it's funny. You mentioned your parents made you get a real job before you went into real estate. And this is partially to take a jab at all the realtors that I don't like, even though I have a lot that I love. I always feel like realtors, just like lenders, by the way, lenders are my career. We are not immune to this, but I feel like so many lenders are like, oh, you failed at your other job, but you knew a bunch of successful people in that arena who you could sell houses to. So I'm gonna become a realtor.
Yeah,
right?
No, exactly. In my parents' case, they were both very successful in what they did. They didn't want, as a adult or a parent, they didn't want to see the downturns, you know?
Right.
Because no matter how successful you are, there's going to be some rougher years, as we know the last couple of years. You're still successful, but they just didn't want to see that from me. They want something a little more steady. But I saw what they wanted, so I want what they had.
Right.
So I kind of got the best of both worlds.
And so how does that happen? Like, did you do the paramedic thing and then one day you're like, oh, I guess I should go get my license? Or were you, you know, slinging open house flyers when you were 18 just trying to help out the parents?
I mean, my dad taught me how to run the MLS when I was like 6. I was doing zeros instead of O's. So he always worked in the house. He didn't have a separate office. So I saw real estate happening all day, every day. We flipped homes when I was in high school. So I've always been around it. I just wasn't allowed to actually be in it.
Right.
Until I had that check mark of full-time PERS paying job.
There you go. And then when did you start to get into real estate? Because I know now you're the broker owner of your location, right?
Yeah, so about 6 months after I got off probation in Boulder City is when I got my license because I could. And then about 2015, I wanted to start doing some commercial stuff. And my mom was very good at residential, but she knew nothing about commercial, and she didn't feel comfortable because I was working under her at the time. So I'm like, okay, I'll just do it myself. Open up an independent brokerage. And then I found Next Home, which is a franchise, and that's who I currently work under. And they're great people, great technology. And I just don't like working for people. I work for people at the fire department. I work for myself when I'm not there.
Right. So explain to people who don't maybe understand real estate, right? So we have a lot of lenders and realtors that listen to this podcast, but for like your average Joe that's like, what is he talking about? Broker, self-employed, etc. Can you explain just the Reader's Digest version of legally how real estate works with the broker and the real estate owner and the company and all that kind of fun stuff?
Absolutely. So I'll start off with every person in real estate is self-employed. They run their own business. Now, who you associate with to run your business is what a brokerage is. And so the salesperson's license in Nevada, when you first test, you get a salesperson's license. You're not a realtor. That's just a designation. So you get your salesperson's license. You can start selling real estate when you assume or someone assumes responsibility for you, which would be a broker. So for every real estate company, there's only one broker. So technically speaking, I hate using this analogy, but I think it's the best way to explain it. I think most people understand it. It's like a car dealership. You have a whole bunch of salespeople in that car dealership, but there's only one owner.
Yeah.
And every deal is technically through that owner because that's who's buying and selling the cars.
Got it.
So, but like my mom, who's was a broker, works under me now. So she just changed her license to a broker salesperson's license, which basically says I have the knowledge, ability, skills, education to be a broker, but I'm still not the broker because we can only have one per shop.
So technically every transaction that closes in your office is your transaction. Like you're putting the final signature on that saying like you assume liability for that, you reviewed it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
like,
I review it and the commission check of those agents comes to me. They're not to Jane Doe or John Doe. It's to Next Home people first, and then I distribute the funds to them. Interesting.
And why do they have that setup? Is the theory like just checks and balances, or because your educational level? Like why does the real estate industry even have this setup? Like why can't I just be Scott Groves, the salesperson? I'll help you negotiate the contract and do the deal.
Well, I'd like to say it's because we have checks and balances, and we want someone that's educated to be reviewing and mentoring and educating their agents to make sure that these transactions that are happening are going to be, for most people, the single biggest transaction they're going to make. So you don't want just some gunslinger 90-hour, now it's 120, online educated person guiding you through that type of transaction.
Right. And, it's interesting because I've been to your brokerage and like more of a boutique shop where like you actually have command and control. I question the model, and I won't use any particular company names, but we know who they are. I question the model where there's a broker owner and they have 500 agents underneath them, because there's no way that broker can be supervising the marketing and the procedures and the sales process and the contracts of 500 people. It's just impossible.
No, and I agree with that. But I think, yes, there are going to be some, I call them puppy mills, where there's just no oversight. They're just, hoping for the best. But there are large brokerages, large teams that have systems in place to make sure those check and balances happen. Yeah, it may not be the broker checking over everything for those transactions, but as a designated transaction coordinator, a compliance department. So they've built the systems and abilities to have that kind of team, but not every large brokerage and team is built the same either.
Got it.
That's why I say when you're shopping for a broker, find if you want more of a boutique like we have, to where you have one-on-one time with me and we can go through your transactions and you can call me if you have a question, or you want something larger, so you're learning with a whole bunch of people there at your same level. But just make sure that those people, as much as a pain it may be to have the checks and balances and the compliance people checking your stuff and nitpicking, it's better than being at the real estate commission next to your broker now. Because when an agent goes to the commission, they don't go alone. The broker goes with them no matter what, to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I loved about when we first met, there was an agent that works at your office, Nicole. Shout out to Nicole. She left a great piece of marketing at my house. I called her, said, hey, you're an agent, I'm a lender. We should connect, have coffee, see if there's a synergy here to work together. Pun intended, because I work for Synergy Mortgage. And she's like, yeah, great. I'm going to come over. I'm a little bit newer. I'm going to bring my broker. And it's like, I think she wanted you to be there to take the smell test of whether I knew what I was talking about. And like, you showed up like a champ, right? We had a great conversation. We had breakfast. We exchanged some ideas. And I love the fact that you were engaged with your agents, even down to the detail of helping them pick a lender to work with. I'm like, oh, this is a real broker who's there to mentor the agents. And from what I have seen in most of the LA market, you don't get a lot of that. It's more like the puppy mill situation.
And I think I take a lot of that from the fire department too, right? Because we have a lot of mentoring and teaching and leading from the fire department side. Even when I was a senior paramedic, you're mentoring the new guys because the captains want you to teach the guys, and the captains are there to make sure the guys are doing what's supposed to be had. So it's something that I think is ingrained with me, and I think I'd much rather have a relationship and have less agents, even if we're not as profitable or making buku bucks, but they're successful, their clients are successful, I'm successful, and at the end of the day, I know we're doing right by our clients.
Smart. I want to jump right into the lawsuit. So maybe I'll tell you my rudimentary understanding of how brokerages work and how this might change, and maybe what the basis for the lawsuit is, and you can tell me where I'm totally wrong and I'm screwing up. So you have somebody wants to list their house. They find a real estate agent. The real estate agent works for a brokerage because there's that checks and balances. The real estate agent says, okay, you're going to sign a contract with my company, ABC Brokerage, and we're going to agree that you're going to pay my brokerage a 6% fee to sell my house. So you sell my house for $1 million, our brokerage gets $60,000. And then the brokerage puts it out there on the multiple listing service, the MLS, and they say, okay, hey, any agent who brings the buyer, we're going to keep 3% of the commission. We're going to give you, the brokerage of the buyer's agent, cooperating brokerage, 3% of this commission, or half of this commission, 3% of the sales price that we just earned. And then when everything's said and done, the seller's agent brokerage gets 3%, $30,000 in this scenario. The buyer's agent brokerage gets 3%, $30,000 in this scenario, and everybody gets paid and whatnot. What I understand the lawsuit to say is that sellers were not basically giving informed consent, and they didn't realize that 6% didn't have to be 6%. It could be 3%. They could have told the buyer's agent to pound sand and have the buyer pay it themselves. And that basically there's been this collusion within the industry to kind of keep this stuff secretive and not be totally transparent and basically inflate a bunch of costs and fees as the middleman, aka the realtors and the realtor brokerage. And they just lost, meaning the National Association of Realtors and the individual realtor boards that they were suing, just lost this massive groundbreaking lawsuit that said, oh yeah, there is collusion going on. This has not been fair. The buyer's agents, the listing agent, or the person selling the house, all these people should be able to shop for their services. There should be more transparent. The way it's set up right now is really not legal. How is my rudimentary understanding of things so far?
Pretty good.
Okay.
We can hone it down to a much simpler definition.
Okay.
What the sellers, who are the plaintiffs in this particular lawsuit, there are other lawsuits where buyers are bringing lawsuits now.
Right.
But in this particular case, it was they think sellers should pay their seller agents and buyers should pay the buyer's agents.
Makes sense.
Makes sense, right? Now, it all depends on how you look at a transaction, though. So when you sign a listing agreement, you go through the process, monies are distributed at escrow. You could also say the buyer is paying 6% because they're the ones giving the money.
Right.
So that's not the premise of the buyer's lawsuit. The premise of the buyer's lawsuit that are out there is that the prices of the homes are inflated because the buyer didn't get to negotiate their commission with their buyers. They could have negotiated a lesser commission, so they could have got a house for 1% less. That's the premise of the buyer side. But yes, the seller side, it's collusion, antitrust-ish. And the particular judge in this Missouri case was very sympathetic to the plaintiffs, and I forget the legal term of it, but basically said that if it's you don't have to truly show there was antitrust, just if it seemed like it,
right?
It was.
Yeah, if it gives the appearance of it, or
per se, I think is the term actually.
Per se, okay.
So that's the big yes and no. Now, are you saying, do I think it's going to change our industry? Yes, 100%. Do I think it's going to change it for the better? 100%.
Okay.
Now, this is why. Before you get your real estate license, you'd find a buyer via cold calling, whatever. You have to prove that you're worth. They didn't have to show that you're competent or whatnot. And you could just find listings, then you get a hook, right? Now you're going to have someone sign a buyer's broker agreement. And buyer broker agreements aren't new.
Right.
I mean, they're required in 10 states currently before this even happened.
Right.
We don't require them here in Nevada. We will soon.
Yeah. They've had them in California for 20 years. I've never seen anybody sign one.
Exactly. Now I require it within my brokerage as soon as it started happening. I'm like, let's just get ahead of this. Let's learn how to sell ourselves better.
Yeah.
Because when this happens and everyone's doing it, then we have a leg up.
Right.
But so now you're gonna have to present this document, which is just like a listing agreement that these people are signing, saying you're going to give a certain percentage. Now you're saying these are my rights or my roles and responsibilities, and to you, I'm going to be your advocate because of blah 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 blah. Because of this and all my hard work I'm going to do, this is the minimum commission I'm willing to take to work for you when we find you a house, be it a percentage, be it a flat fee. Now, nothing has changed in the MLS as of now. Nothing has changed in the fact that sellers can offer commissions. So if that commission is what you agreed upon, no harm, no foul. Seller pays for it. You don't owe any more money. That's going to be really hard when you're sitting in front of someone and they're like, so I'm guaranteeing you 2.5%, 3%, whatever your thing is, because there's no cost fixing. Why? What are you going to say? Without good mentoring from a broker or a team leader, you're not going to have much to say. I just passed my real estate exam and I'm winging it.
Right.
So in that case, I think it's going to be really beneficial for the industry.
So selfishly, and I'm going to put my cards here on the table, which if any of my realtors listen to this, they might stop working with me. Selfishly, I'm kind of gleeful over this and smiling because as a loan officer, I've been doing 23 years of this being the standard scenario. You know, realtor introduced me to a client. Thank you, Mr. Realtor. I really appreciate the introduction. Like that means a lot to me. That's kind of, you know, having a good realtor referral partner is the gift that keeps on giving. And you know, the buyer's agent will work with the client. In LA, it's very similar to where the rest of the country is now. It's been like this in LA for 14 years, where lead time from introduction to actually getting somebody under contract is 6, 8, 10 months. The rest of the country is starting to feel this now because of lack of inventory, but this has just been the way it's been in California for my entire career, where it's like you're nurturing that buyer relationship for months, maybe a year. You're running updated scenarios. You're sending pre-approval letters at Friday night, you know, at 9 o'clock at night. Saturday afternoon, you're stepping out of movies with the family to update the scenarios and numbers and whatnot.
Because if you don't, someone walks away.
Right. They walk away. And the realtor uses somebody else. And then at the moment of impact, which, by the way, the realtor gets to go to the client and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, if you want this house, you have to offer $100,000 over the asking price, which you're never going to get back. You can't refinance your purchase price. Oh, yeah, by the way, you can't have a loan contingency. We're moving that. You can't have a appraisal contingency. So if the appraisal comes in low, you got to bring in extra money on top of the $100,000. And the excuse me, because of market forces, the realtors, no offense, not doing a lot of work to protect the buyer. They're just doing whatever they can to help get the offer accepted.
To get the contract done.
Yeah. And then the offer gets accepted. The client comes to me and they're like, cool, we're ready to get started. What's your rate? And I'm like, oh, you know, we're at 6.75. And they're like, oh, hey, I'm really sorry. You know, Bank of America will do it for 6.625. And that's $45 a month for 30 years. I got to do what's best for my family. And, you know, I just grin and bear it, and I want to keep the realtor relationship. So I don't point out to the client that they just overpaid for the house by $100,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what they had to do to offer you get the offer accepted. But here I am getting my throat slit over $80 a month, which is tax deductible. So it's really $40 a month. And so for me, the fact that buyer's agents are going to have to kind of go sing for their lunch, I'm kind of just like giddy. Like, oh yeah, now you guys are going to get to experience what I feel, where, you know, you go to write the offer and the buyer's like, oh, you know what, Beau, I told you I was going to pay you 2%, but this is $1 million house. $20,000
don't need that much.
$20,000 is a lot of money. You know, you only showed me 4 houses, Beau. How about we do 5,000? And it's like, it's kind of making me smile inside, where I'm like, oh yeah, realtors, you're going to get a taste of what it's like to be a lender.
Yeah, exactly. And I think because of it, you know, I think last stats for Greater Los Angeles Association of Realtors was 18,000 agents. 18,000
agents? Aren't there only like 8,000 properties listed?
Something like that.
Oh,
but like, I foresee at least a third of the agents leaving the industry within the next 6 months.
Hey, this quick interruption is brought to you by me, Scott Groves, the host of the On the Edge podcast. This podcast is brought to you by me. I'm a loan officer who can help you with a mortgage in all 50 states across the United States. I also coach loan officers. So if you are a home buyer who's looking to get a mortgage, if you're a realtor who's looking to partner with an awesome loan officer, or if you're a loan officer looking for coaching, get in touch with me. It's those sources of revenue that allow us to produce this podcast and get out a new episode to you every week for the last couple of years. So if you're looking for a mortgage, if you're looking for a mortgage lender to partner with, or you're looking for a mortgage coach, I'm your guy. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Right.
Now, I mean, this is a big part of it, but just market forces and the tougher economy of real estate right now. But
yeah,
it's going to be a lot harder to justify your worth.
Yeah. I mean, I've had realtors that I've called before where, let's say we're doing $1.5 million transaction. Let's say the commission's 2.5%. So that's $37,000. The brokerage is keeping some percentage of that. So let's say there's $30,000 on the table in commission. And we're getting to this crux of the issue on like an inspection. I've called realtors before and been like, hey, Beau, look, man, rates are a little higher than the client expected. The client had to pay $75,000 over the asking price for the house. They weren't allowed to have any contingencies. They got their teeth kicked in inspections and they found out there's a lot more work. The client just wants a win. I think if you just call them and offer them $500 or something, they'll be happy.
Which is an easy win.
And I swear to God, it's like I shot that realtor's puppy. Like, what do you mean I would give $500 out of my commission?
You know throughout the entire nation, how many transactions on average realtors do?
No.
Guess.
A year?
Yeah.
7.
3.
The average realtor does 3.
No, from the bottom to the top, which the top do a lot, is 3.
Holy shit.
So you got to remember there's a lot of agents doing 1, 2.
Yeah, if they're working full time, that's basically minimum wage.
It's minimum wage, exactly. So for me or producing agents or agents that appreciate what the industry is, you call me and say, hey, we need $500. Like,
absolutely.
It's, not my favorite phone call to get, but to make the deal work, make the client happy, make this happen, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I think, but that's a crazy stat I heard the other day on a podcast. It's 3.
3, that's intense. And what's interesting is this is coming at a time where brokerages, and we can pick whichever ones we want, EXP, Compass, whatnot. It's been a race to the bottom on brokerage splits anyway, right? Like everybody's got some version of pay a flat fee or
flat fee, yeah.
The money going to the brokerage.
Which you pay for what you get.
Yeah, you pay for what you get. Exactly.
Just remember that.
Yeah, totally. I remember when I started this in 2000, there was a lot of Century 21 agents where it was a 50-50 split.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the standard. And then it became this, and then KW came out with their idea of being a capper. So, okay, once we make about $35,000 off of you, we're good. That's all we need from you. And it's like, it's just been this progressive race to the bottom where like a lot of brokerages don't know how to express their value. How are they going to turn around and teach their agents
how to do it? Yeah.
How to express their value? So do you think this is coming where most sellers will get wise to the fact that they'll just say flat out, no, Beau, the house is going to sell itself. It's a good house in a good market. I'm only paying you 3% to handle the listing. Buyer be damned. They'll probably find me on Redfin anyway. Do you think we're getting there, or do you think more of it will just be the same with extra disclosures?
I think it's going to be different, right? I do think we're going to get to a point where we're saying, yes, I'm only going to pay you X amount to list my house. But as a good listing agent, and this is where the listing presentation is going to have to completely change for a lot of real estate agents, is you're going to have to go in and say, I understand that. That's my commission. I'm working for you. You're my client. We're going to make this happen. But be aware we have things called closing costs. And what I see is that buyer broker commission is being a closing cost going forward. Right? So James Wiggins, our CEO of Next Home, he has been like the subject matter expert on this. I mean, he is geeks out about this. So that's where I've listened to podcasts and I'm talking. And they're already working with the federal agencies to be able to roll some of these fees into lending.
Of course. The lender is always the one that's going to eat in the shorts.
Well, no, it's just the fact that we've already done a race to the bottom on down payments, right?
Right.
3.5%, 5%. Now you expect them to come up with another 1, 2, 3, whatever the commission is going to be.
Right.
They have to either get it from the seller via closing costs.
Yep.
Or they're going to be rolled into the loan.
Yeah.
So I do think there will be a time to where where the listing agreements are only for the listing commission, but good listing agents are going to have to explain that yes, you should expect though a offer with a buyer side commission as in closing costs. And remember, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer seller, when you bought that house, that 6% was in there.
Yeah.
5% was in there. So you're actually, so do you want to take that 2% off the top of what you think your sales price is? Or are you just be ready for that closing cost?
Yeah, interesting. So it'll be a situation where the seller's probably going to get juiced one way or the other. It'll just be a matter of whether or not it comes as a credit towards closing costs applied to the buyer so they can pay their buyer's agent.
Yeah.
Or it'll somewhere get rolled into the cost of the loan. Or, if you're an
50-50 or
if you're excellent at your listing presentation, you can probably tell the story like, hey, if you want the most buyers, we've got to offer a buyer incentive.
Yeah.
We got to offer a buyer agent commission so that they'll show the damn house.
And I don't think they'll ever be able to litigate that out. I mean, you look at listings, $10,000 for carpet, $10,000 for paint. Like, you can't tell a seller, no, you can't offer something to the buyer, right?
Right.
It's their way to do it. Now, to be automatic, and I say let's be aggressive, by July, we will not see buyer co-op in the MLS.
Explain what that is for the...
So on the MLS sheet, previously, it was a hidden feature to where it'd say basically what the seller was willing to pay that buyer broker. 2, 3, whatever.
Right.
After some of these lawsuits started forming, they made it a public field so you could see it on all the third-party sites. What I see is kind of more like commercial. Yes, some commercial sites show some sort of commission, but for the most part, you don't see a buyer side commission on it. So you're going to have to negotiate that into the deal.
Yeah.
So it may be there.
Right.
They may put it in the agent to agent, the public remarks, but that field, I think, as part of the settlement, will probably be gone.
Right. I like that. Yeah, it's interesting because I've tried to make the correlation with real estate before, or with realtors before, where it's like, hey, us losing that deal at the moment it goes under contract. Once the deal goes under contract, all the hard work is done. Like, the hard work is in the pre-approval, nurturing the relationship, educating the buyer, working up the financials, getting the deal underwritten to a point where you can make that offer with no contingencies. Like, that's all the hard work. And I've tried to tell realtors, imagine a world where you show the client 30 houses, which I'm very sympathetic to. I don't think realtors have an easy job. Because I know by the time I showed a client the 10th house and I'm like, really? Like, none of these? You can't make an offer yet? Like, I couldn't do that. So God bless realtors for the hard job that you do trying to match clients to a house. But the equivalent would be you go to make the request for repairs and then the lender tells the client, hey, you know what? Beau's great. But he was only able to negotiate $5,000 request for repairs. I bet you if you went to my buddy Chris, he could negotiate $7,500. And the buyer comes back and says, "Hey, Beau, thanks for all your hard work. We're going to go with this other realtor." It's about the same thing.
No,
right?
I 100% agree. I think that's where the relationship with lenders and agents need to come from.
Right.
We need to be an advocate for all of our partners, right? Even the home inspectors, the lenders.
Yeah.
Once that home inspector's there, once that lender's there, fight for him.
Right.
You're not going to win the fight every time.
Right.
There's just too much, information on the internet nowadays,
right,
to do that. But you say, yes, Scott may have a little higher rate, but look at the service he's giving you. Because I guarantee, I actually had one of these with a lender of mine that I have a good relationship last year. It was a VA buyer. They're both Air Force, so everything was moving and grooving. And then he went to
Quicken?
No. The military.
USAA.
USAA, and they gave him like 0.05 better. He's like, I gotta go. I'm like, you really shouldn't. You should go with this guy.
Right.
Right? Like, we're here. We're in the middle. We were in the transaction.
Right.
He's like, I just can't. I'm like, I didn't know the buyer very well. It was a referral moving here to go to Nellis and stuff like that. Well, that transaction was so bad by the time we were done. We still have a good relationship. He goes, I will never use them again. I go, I know. Because you're just a number to them. This guy had a relationship with.
Right.
And that little bit more you'd pay is probably worth the headache that you went through for the last month and a half.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. I've had clients cut off their nose to spite their face on that type of stuff more times than it's even worth talking about in this podcast. But do you think, because there's been this race to the bottom with brokerage costs that they're, the split that they're taking with their realtors. And there's just been a race to the bottom in a lot of financial industries, right?
Yeah.
Do you think we'll see a scenario in the future where some entrepreneurial realtor comes out and they're like, hey man, I'll be your buyer's agent for $1,000, but here's what you get. You got to go see your own property. You send me the information. All I do is negotiate the contract and basically work as a transaction coordinator. And if you think you're so smart, Mr. and Mrs. Client, that you can figure it out on your own and you do all your own research, like, cool, I'll just handle the licensing procedure of it for $1,000.
No, because we've already had those before. We've had them for 20 years.
Yeah. Like
List of cells,
the iBuyer.
They don't work.
Yeah.
We're in the Amazon age, right? I'm willing to pay $1 more for my deodorant because I can just log on my computer. It's there. It comes to my house. I don't think about it.
Right.
So now you're saying I'm going to go try to do the biggest transaction of my life kind of on my own?
Right.
I'm gonna call this guy who's, someone had said with all this commission, we're becoming more like attorneys where we're paid hourly, which we can't do because of our tax exempt or the 1099 statute in the IRS code. So it's just not going to happen. But now you're going to be just a number, transaction 1,630. What's your question on this property? That's just not, I just don't see it happening.
Cool. Let's take a food break. All right, cool, man. We're back from our quick dinner break. Just more proof that I record from my house, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was great. Thank you for the dinner, though.
Oh, you're welcome. Greek dinner down the street, always good. We left off, we were talking about, like, we just don't think this, what has traditionally been called the iBuyer brokerage, some online, we'll do it for $500, not going to succeed. So where do you think we will see the emergence of the successful, financially profitable, well-appointed, killing it buyer's agent? Like, what is that going to look like?
Honestly, I think it's what we already have. Professional buyer's agents out there that know what they're doing. They know the neighborhood. They can guide you through the process. They're confident, and they make the process as easy as possible. We know there's going to be hiccups. Make those hiccups go away.
Right.
2, it's going to be people that want to over-educate their buyers before they get there. So they're going to be the ones that are making the videos. They're explaining the processes that when you get your duties owed, there's going to be a video or a how to attach to it. You're going to be more automated, not because of out of convenience, but because the consumer's going to demand it for the price point they're paying. They're going to want the knowledge on demand. Yeah, they're going to call you, but if they can have resources to go to, you're just going to look more professional, and you're going to make the process so much better for them. They're going to have such a good experience. Then they're going to tell their friends or relatives, you got to use this buyer's agent. I know there's a price point to it, but this transaction was so good.
Yeah. It's interesting. And this is not the fault of agents. This is the fault of technology. The best agent, I think I can say this, probably the best agent I've ever worked with is this gentleman named Kirk Giroux, who I'm super bummed out that he effectively retired from LA and moved to Michigan, so we don't do deals together anymore. But pre everything being DocuSign, when we were working in the same Prudential office together, he would have the buyer come in. He would do a real buyer's consult where he would go over the contract. He would explain the process. He would go over what the contingencies were. He would do everything. He would sign a buyer-broker agreement. Then he would have me swoop in at a scheduled time to explain the loan process, start taking the application. And it's like, not surprisingly, every deal with Kirk was just a peach. It was super easy to get through. And then you start to get to this automated world of DocuSign and people not meeting in person until they go see the first property together. And like, I can't tell you the number of deals where we're making the offer, I'm sending the pre-approval letter. And again, this is no fault of the realtor. This is just, it's going to have to be the solution of the realtor, but it's just the speed at which business is moving right now with everybody being automated, where I have clients asking me, hey, okay, well, you're sending me the pre-approval letter. We're going to make this offer. What happens if this appraisal doesn't come in? Or what happens if I don't have enough money? I'm like, has your agent not talked to you about contingencies? No, what's a contingency? And it's like, so then I'm going through the education process. And again, I don't really fault the agent for that. That's just the speed at which business is moving. But good buyer's agents are going to have to slow down and have real buyer consults and real relationships.
And it's what's old is new again, right? So it's going to be in a different form. You're not going to be, sitting across the table from somebody, but like, hey, here's my educational platform I made for you. Go through it. If you have any questions, actually go through this before we meet, because I want to answer all your questions before we see that first property, because I want you to be the most educated buyer I've ever worked with, so you're successful.
Yeah.
And if you're able to provide that kind of service, they're going to say whatever they're signing that dotted line, it's worth it. I just got a full education for whatever I'm paying here, and everything after this is just gravy.
Right.
So if you're able to do that, I mean, that's what I'm currently working on my business, trying to build up so much education that I can send my consumers that, do they really need me? Yes. But will they feel like they need me? No, but they want me there because I've given them so much in value.
Yeah. This is a weird corollary, but I'm thinking as you're talking through this, I'm thinking about like high-end fitness trainers, right? It's like you can pay $24 a month to go to Planet Fitness or $9 a month, whatever. And all the equipment's there. You can get in really great shape.
Absolutely, yeah.
Going to Planet Fitness for $9 a month. But most people who actually care about getting fit, they go pay somebody $100 an hour 4 times a week to be held accountable and actually work out with a professional who can walk them through it and help them stretch.
To stand there with them during the process.
Yeah. That's funny. Buyer's agents, I'll stand there with you through the process.
But if you think of it, if they're so educated as a buyer's agent, your life's great. Your life's great.
Yeah.
You're just standing there to be their parachute when something comes up that they're not sure of.
Right.
But they're going to be happy to have that parachute and that backup parachute when something doesn't go right.
Yeah. I'm going to steal another tip from my old buddy Kirk. One of the things that I liked most about him, which I think this could be one of the ways that buyers agents could articulate their value, is Kurt used to say, and it was when I was in the room, he would be like, listen, hey, here's the thing about a real estate transaction. I'm going to work for you. Scott's going to work for you. But there's 30 other people involved in the transaction: the title company, the appraiser, who Scott has no control over, the closer who's drawing the docs, the escrow company's assistant, the listing
underwriter.
Yeah, the underwriter, all the people, right, that we don't have control over. And at some point in the transaction, and Kirk was telling this, there's going to be this oh shoot moment where you don't think you're going to get the house. It happens on every transaction. When that happens, take a breath, call me. I'll get all the adults in the room on the phone together. We'll solve the problem. We'll get you the house.
Because there's always a solution.
There's always a solution.
It may not look like there's a solution, but there's always a solution.
Yeah, and inevitably, when that problem would come up, it turns out we're in a burn/fire/hillside/flood zone. We can't get insurance. We can't close on time. We got to do this. The buyer's freaking out thinking they can't buy the house. Kirk would just calmly get everybody on the phone. He'd be like, hey, remember we talked about this, that there was going to be a problem? Now we're just going to all solve it together. And you could over the phone, you could hear the client take an audible, deep sigh of relief. And it's like that I don't know how you express that level of professionalism to then turn around and say, and by the way, you're going to owe me $20,000 when we close this transaction. But it's going to be interesting to see how buyers position that, or buyers agents. Sorry.
But I think in today's, I'll go back to the Amazon theory, they want it now. So if you give everyone everything now, they're going to be a lot more trusting when something comes up.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not hiding anything from them. You're not keeping the secrets of the due diligence from them.
Right.
There's a short video on what due diligence is and how you can get through it successfully.
Right. Do you think that, I have some very strong opinions about this, so I'd love to get your take on it. Do you think this will increase or decrease the number of dual agency representation where the listing agent also represents the buyer?
Decrease.
Why? Because I would have guessed increase, but go for it.
I think decrease or dual agency is the next domino to fall.
Okay, thank God, because I hate dual agency. Can you tell me why you think it's the next thing to fall?
It's such an easier battle to fight, I think, for the consumer to say, how can you, Mr. Realtor, Mr. Salesperson, Mrs. Salesperson, have my best interests in mind and the other party's best interest in mind? It's just impossible. Lawyers can't do it.
Right.
So why can we? Because we're going back to, we just write contracts and open doors. Well, that's not what we do. So that's either what we do and we can't do dual agency, or that's not what we do. We actually are advocates for our clients and we can't do dual agency.
Yeah. I have thought since the concept first came into my consciousness years ago, I was like, wait, how does this work? The agent is representing the seller and the buyer. And what has proliferated from that is a whole cross-section of buyers are like, well, Scott, you were referred to me by this agent, but I just want to tell you up front, I'm just going to go directly to the listing agent because then I'll get a deal because, the listing agent will tell me what I need to offer. I'm like, yeah, but maybe. True. We've seen it happen.
Yeah.
And also, when you go to put in the request for repairs or find out what's really going on in the house, is the agent representing you, the buyer, or are they representing the seller? Because their job is to get the highest net price for the seller and their job for the buyer is to make sure the buyer gets a fair deal. Those two things might not be mutually exclusive.
No, they're oil and water. It's impossible. The whole thought of it is just so crazy that, have I done it? Yes.
Thank you for the honesty.
Right? Like, but it was a client of mine and their renter was buying the house. They want to get it done. Outside of those situations, I haven't had an open house where a buyer I haven't done it, but yes, I've done it. Do I think I'll do it in the future? Probably not.
Yeah.
Now there might be with dual agency being a broker, there's a little bit different. I might give it to one of my agents to do. So yes, technically still dual agency because I can see both files, per se.
Right.
But will I handle both sides? I don't see it happening in the future.
Yeah, I'm surprised that hasn't become a lawsuit yet. Like I can only imagine, the house that we just bought, we closed on about 6 months ago. We used our own buyer's agent and there's a selling agent. But if I go through the selling agent and then it turns out that like the selling agent knew that, I don't know, the air conditioning system, which for this house, because there's 2 air conditioning zone, it's like $20,000, if they knew that it was inferior and they didn't pass that information on to me, like that's a huge liability for that agent.
Well, either way, they should have disclosed it. We'll just leave that there. But,
right.
But yeah, I mean, who's at fault? And then E&O?
Right.
E&O's going to just hang out to dry there.
100%. Yeah, you're not getting covered for that. So, kind of coming full circle to like maybe just specifically the Las Vegas market. There's a lot of talk about, interest rates went up and properties are really expensive, which they are across the United States. There's going to be a bubble. There's going to be a crash. I mean, I've been hearing from people since 2012 when houses in Eagle Rock, California first started going over $400,000 or $500,000 for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house in Eagle Rock, California. Oh, there's just no way. There's going to be a bubble. There's this shadow inventory of foreclosed houses that are all going to hit the market and cause prices to go down. And then it was, rates are up. That's going to cause prices to go down. And then it was, we're in a recession. And then it was, we're in a boom. And now, it's always something. But I don't see anything slowing down. Like the pool of available buyers is getting smaller because houses are more expensive and interest rates are up. But I don't see anything on the horizon, especially for areas like Los Angeles where they're out of space to build. At least here in the Clark County area, there is places to build new houses. I don't see anything on the horizon that's going to make property values go down significantly. So do you have any insight on the numbers on like what's available for listing? Are we a buyer's market, a seller's market, where things look, what things look like?
Yeah, so technically we're at 3 months of availability.
Explain what that means for people that aren't realtors.
So availability, they take it by the amount of homes that are for sale based on the amount of transactions that
I got cool little data over there. You got your cool broker data.
Yeah, I don't remember numbers very well. I know generalizations. But so basically they say this many homes generally sell in a month. This is how many homes we have on the market. So they obviously divide that number, and that's how many months of availability.
Got it. So if no new houses came on the market today, how long would it take to
3 months
close out the supply?
Exactly.
Okay, so 3 months to sell all the houses that are currently on the market in Clark
County. If everything stayed the same.
Okay.
So, I mean, these stats are a little dated. They came out middle of December, but at the time there were 4,353 homes on the market. Now that's down, but it's still 3 month availability. So
in Clark County, like the area where, Las Vegas is, people only think of the Strip, but Las Vegas is big.
Yeah.
The county sells, by those numbers, about 1,600 houses
right now.
A month right now. There's 4,500-ish on the market. So if no new houses came on the market and everything stayed the same, there would be no houses for sale within 3 months.
So in that time period, 1,435
1,435. Okay. And so that's kind of like, you said what kind of market?
That's considered neutral. Like
neutral, okay.
Considered 3 months is pretty neutral in a buyer's versus seller's market. Which, if you look around right now, prices aren't jumping, prices aren't decreasing, so it's a neutral market. So I think you're 100% correct. I don't think we're gonna have any sort of crashes because we do have a availability problem when people start buying.
Yeah,
we still have people moving from California in droves. There's a great website, How Money Moves. You can type in Las Vegas, and you can see the 5 places that money's moving from to, and then where our money's moving to.
Interesting.
And I think last time I checked, 3 out of the top 5 were California. The other one was the Chicago area, and then some other cold weather area.
Yeah.
So our industry here is getting better. We're diversifying, so everything's going right for Vegas right now.
Yeah.
Sports and entertainment, of course.
Talk a little bit about that, because when people come to Vegas, they think about the Strip. They stay on the Strip, and that's the Strip. And I think, even as recently as COVID, Nevada had the highest unemployment rate in the country because a lot of entertainment got shut down because of COVID.
The hotel shut down.
Yeah, the hotel shut down. That's, giant employer, hotels, casinos, etc. So can you talk about, for those people that aren't local to Vegas or don't own a second home up here like we do, what are the other industries that are coming to Vegas? Like how is the city growing outside of gaming?
Yeah, so absolutely. So Nevada as a whole, we have two major industries. Obviously, it's hospitality and mining. We don't have the mining down south.
Mining's up in like Reno,
all of northern Nevada.
Okay.
They actually just found a huge, what are they using for the batteries in the smart cars?
Boron or lithium?
Lithium. They found a huge lithium deposit on the Nevada border that's going to be like bigger than anyone in the world. So,
oh, wow.
Nevada's a very rich state for minerals. But for Vegas, we're trying to get more technology jobs, more financial jobs. We're becoming a real city, right? We're more than just people coming here for entertainment and leaving.
Right.
I was born and raised here, so this town is dramatically different than what I remember growing up in. And it's really cool to see what they're doing. We have land, but we really don't have that much land in Nevada as a whole, if you ever look at it. I think something like 85% of the land is owned by BLM.
What?
Yeah.
85% of Nevada is Bureau of Land Management, owned by the government?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because
is it national parks or is it mineral deposits?
No,
or it's
I think it's the mineral. I mean, they just never developed it, and so it just became government land. And so when you see these purchases out by Red Rock and these communities, the BLM actually has land auctions like every 6 months where people just come with cases of cash and buy land that the BLM is finally releasing.
Holy shit. I did not realize that so much of the state was owned by the BLM. That's wild. Okay. You mentioned industries. I know, like, kind of famously, Mark Wahlberg has moved up here. He's trying to build like $100 million
the film industry. They're working on that. That came in a little late at the legislature last year. They tried to kind of put that the last week, which didn't work. But that's an industry that definitely it's and it makes sense, right? We're close to LA. Mm-hmm. We have no state income tax, so it's great for actors and actresses that are making $10 and $15 million a film. So I do think that'll be one that's probably come to Vegas, because unfortunately we lose out to Reno a lot right now with the big plants and stuff like that, because they actually have more available land right now than we
interesting.
do.
Yeah, it's what will I say here? Let me be careful with my words. Some people who I know who made a lot of money in tech or mortgage, in the mortgage CEO space, the tech founder space, the angel investor space, if you look at their social media, they're all in on every progressive measure, and and people don't pay their fair share, and blah 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 blah. But the second they realized they could save 10% by moving to Vegas instead of staying somewhere in Southern California, because California just continues to raise their tax rate. Oh, all of a sudden for their money,
6 months in a day, they love Las Vegas.
Yeah, 6 months in a day, they are definitely living in Nevada, and then they'll have their quote unquote second home in Newport Beach, Silicon Valley,
on the water,
somewhere. Yeah, and look, I get it, man. If I was a multimillionaire, I'd probably want a house in Newport Beach or San Diego on the water as well. But when it comes to what they want to do with their money, all of a sudden, very fiscally responsible.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how have you seen that change here? Because, when I was growing up, it was like, I would say Vegas was a blue collar, like working class neighborhood. I've been coming up here since 82 or 83 when my uncle moved here, and he worked in advertising, so he was kind of involved in the entertainment. But outside of that, very blue collar. And now, you get areas like a gated community within a gated community within a gated community of Sutherland. Like, there's a lot of affluence out here.
Oh, yeah, you got the Ridges of Sky. You have so many big name. I mean, I don't remember a $10 million house selling here until 2015-ish, maybe. Like, we just didn't have that price point. It didn't happen.
Right.
I think with technology, with COVID, these high earners, they can come here and save their 11% and have their second home, and they realize that Vegas is actually a really great place to live. Yeah. Yeah, we don't have an oceanfront, but we're 5 hours away from basically anything you want to do. You want to be in Cabo 3 hours. You want to be skiing in Salt Lake. That's 5 hours. We're a plane, and we're one of the few places where you can get to the airport within 30 minutes, nowhere where we live. Right. So we're a hub for everything. So I think more and more people are just realizing that Vegas is just a place where you can have it all.
Yeah. Yeah, people always ask me, they're like, oh, you have little kids and you moved to Vegas? I'm like, well, first of all, I don't live on the Strip. So, handing out, nudie flyers, that's not my kids' exposure.
Well, that was my favorite thing on vacation as a kid. They'd say, what hotel do you live in? I'm like, oh,
yeah.
we have houses.
That's so awesome. And so I tell people that my go-to line for the last year has been like, first of all, I live in Henderson, which, the Los Angeles equivalent would be like living in Valencia or Simi Valley. You're kind of out of the suburbs. And I say the disclosure is sometimes when I do take the kids for like a Slurpee, sugary treat after jiu-jitsu practice on a Tuesday afternoon, there is some crackhead on the slot machine at 7-Eleven. And so it's like, probably if you're on a slot machine in 7-Eleven at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday, life has not gone that well for you. So there are some things we have to explain to our kids living in Vegas that we might not have to explain in other places. But, the tax savings, what you get for the price on housing, it was just like, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, we're not outpricing people. We might be outpricing some of our industry, which I think we need to work on. But I think as a whole, that's getting better too. But our affordability is still there.
Yeah. So what is the solution for that? Because it brings up an interesting, quagmire between the role of government and the role of private industry and capitalism versus some type of price fixing. Like, what is the solution? Because you don't want Clark County to become another Los Angeles where if you're a working class family, dad's a bartender and mom works a customer service job, that you have to live an hour and a half away because there is no affordability. Like, how does government planning or government intervention strike that balance of like, man, you got to have affordable housing for all of the minimum wage workers that work the Strip versus like, hey, I don't want socialized housing either.
Yeah, I think capitalism is actually the cornerstone to that. And it's going to sound really weird, but I think a lot of our employees that come and work in the casinos and the union jobs out here, they probably come here single and starting out, right? And I think if the casinos could get behind maybe some corporate type housing development, some apartment complexes that they subsidized. So as these new employees, they come in, it's a work benefit for them. They get, a little bit subsidized housing because maybe the hotels don't want to make a profit on those, so they can pass those profits on or the savings on to their employees, and then that allows them to save to then put a down payment on a house eventually, or as they marry it. I think that's a really cool solution we could do, and I think it's something that the hotels could definitely get on board with.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're buying another asset.
Right. They
may not be making their annual returns on it, but as we know, real estate will always appreciate. And then they're giving a benefit and a reason for people to work for them versus Wynn or MGM or wherever they're going to go.
Yeah. Well, this one night, my wife is great at striking up conversations with strangers when she wants to. And she's in the mood. She's like world class at it. And I can't remember what I was doing. I was either smoking a cigar with a coaching client or I was getting busted out of a poker tournament or whatever. She met me at the Wynn to have a drink. This is before we were even living up here. And she started talking to the bartender and, just asking questions about what it's like. I had no idea that every bartender in Vegas is basically a union job and you have all kinds of benefits. And this guy was talking about, I've been at the Wynn since the second day they were open. So I get priority shift and I get this. I was like, and I was kind of like reverse engineering the math because I do loans. So that's what I do is constantly think about what people make for a living. And I'm like, this guy's making like $120 a year working a pretty good shift because he's put in his time. It's a union job. He has a pension. He has good benefits. Like, this is a freaking good job.
He can buy a pretty decent house.
Yeah. And especially because his wife was on the other side.
Regarding the subsidized housing, there is kind of a casino that did that over in Prim when that was like in its prime. They built a bunch of housing out there, and that was like a thing for a hot minute. They also provided free transportation from Vegas for their employees. So they were like on board with all that, but they're also like in Prim, so it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Chris is an infrastructure nerd, by the way. Knows more about the LA aqueduct system than you would care to forget.
When my dad was working a ton of hours as an appraiser back in the day, that was my birthday. We'd go to Prim, and because they had Buffalo Bills had the roller coaster, the water slide, and my dad could just sit there and make sure I didn't drown, and that was my birthday for like 4 or 5 years.
Watch this. Hey, Chris, when did they build the roller coaster at Prim?
I think it opened in 97.
You got to look it up now. So Chris is a roller coaster enthusiast as well.
Oh.
He has traveled, every one of his foreign country excursions is to try a different
based
roller
around
coaster.
a roller coaster?
Yeah. So I remember I asked him one time, I was like, yeah, you know that roller coaster at Magic Mountain Viper? He's like, oh, you mean Viper? Opened in 1993, designed by blah, blah. I was like, what the fuck?
Maximum speed.
Yeah, exactly. So that's an interesting take. Whoa.
Hi.
My bad. The year is 94. And when it opened, it was the tallest roller coaster in the world.
Oh,
Really?
Really?
I think that's tall.
Or maybe not the tallest, but the longest drop. Something
Longest
like
drop.
that. Yeah.
Nice. See, there we go. Roller coaster enthusiast, Chris DeRosa. So I like that idea. And eventually some casino will have to do this, right? It will have to be a perk benefit. Eventually when housing here does get more expensive because there's more and more people moving here.
And we don't have the suburbs like LA has, right? I mean, are they going to go to Prim? Are they going to go to Pahrump? Like, where are people going to? Where's that second location going to be?
Yeah,
and Pahrump is growing because of that reason. It is more affordable. That people want a little bit more land, are willing to drive the 45 minutes to get back in town. Because at this point, it takes me an hour and 15 minutes to get to Summerlin.
Right.
So it back in the day, you could get anywhere in 10, 15 minutes in town. Now, people are accustomed to those longer drives. So Pahrump is becoming a better option.
Yeah. Boulder City. I mean, a lot of land out there, right?
That's expensive.
Boulder City expensive.
Not a lot of land. Boulder City owns a lot of land, but they have building restrictions.
Oh.
Because they want to keep their population low.
Why is that? Local politics or something?
Yes.
Okay. We can leave it at that if you want to sleep.
They have certain rules, like at certain populations, they get like another bar, and so it's all hearsay. But basically, they want to keep it under 18,000.
Got it. Chris, were you telling me that like Pahrump or something has to stay under a certain population in order to keep the brothels or something? Obviously prostitution happens on the Strip in Vegas because that's the world we live in. But like the legal brothels in Nevada have to be in these small towns. And like you were telling me something about this.
I want to say it's around 300,000, and that's why there are no brothels in Clark County, which is where Las Vegas is, or up in like I think it's Washoe County,
which is Reno,
because that's the other population center of the state. But it's like legal in every other county because it has to be below a certain population threshold.
So
you have to be lonely.
Yeah. You have to be lonely in order to authorize a brothel, which is just wild to me.
What else are we going to do tonight?
Yeah. Not going to the brothel. Oh my God, that just grosses me out. So what else do we need to know either about just like real estate trends going into 2024? You know, I do think we're going to see a little bit of a reprieve on rates. And finally, I think it's working its way into the consumer consciousness of like, all right, that 3% rate that my cousin got, that was a once in a lifetime fluke. It's gone. It's never coming back. But do you think people get off the fence at 6? Do you think people sell their house with a 3% rate and upgrade to a bigger house if they can get a house in the 5% range? Like, what's your outlook for 2024?
So originally I was saying 6.5.
Okay.
And 6.5 was before that crazy drop we had a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, we were going to do this incremental drop because nothing ever goes down as fast as it goes up, right?
Right.
So, I thought once we got to 6.5, it'd be middle of the year. People would finally accept 6.49, whatever. I think with that big drop we just had, it's probably going to be closer to 6.
Yeah.
For them to feel comfortable, right? At the end of the day, that half point, if you need a house, you should probably just jump on it now. But what I do warn people of, and I think that 6 will is coming sooner than we think.
Yeah, I agree.
June, July. I think February is going to be a big month for us, obviously, with the Fed releasing their predictions or whatnot. But if you're a buyer, you need to time this market right. You need to start shopping your agents. You need to start figuring out what you want, what your price points are, sharpening your lender, saying, hey, if rates go X, what can I afford?
Yeah.
Because when that floodgate opens, it's going to be COVID 2.0.
And explain for people who weren't searching for real estate during then what that means.
So originally when COVID happened, we all thought we were going to go out of business completely.
Right.
What ended up happening is people realized they didn't like being in their homes, their current homes, so they decided everyone bought their homes. Like we pushed buyers that weren't supposed to be buying per historical norms for years. So we actually went ahead in our trends of units per sale. It's by like 2 million a year. It was something crazy. Like you could swing a cat and sell a house.
Right.
Which that was the time when people were waiving their appraisals, waiving their due diligence, waiving their home inspections, paying $100,000 over ask price, what have you, because there was 30 people behind them that were willing to give their firstborn child up for the house.
Right.
So you don't want to be in that situation again, especially you've been waiting for all this time, waiting for the rates to drop, and then they drop, and now you're in a 30-person line. So be proactive as you see rates dropping. Even now, start shopping for your home. You know, what's that thing that lenders say? Date your rate, marry your home, or something like that.
Yeah, I hate it, but yes, people do say that.
Yeah, but if you find your dream home, don't wait for the perfect interest rate.
Yeah.
And then sellers, you're right, when they feel like they're going to be able to get a deal, there's going to be more homes hitting the market. So the inventory is going to be up. The homes are going to be that you want are going to be available. Because I think that's the other problem with buyers right now. The inventory is not as great as it once was, so they don't have many options. So they're not falling in love with a house.
Yeah.
And with the rates where they are, they don't feel like they have to. They're pressured into buying a house because they're paying more.
Yeah.
So I think 6.
And what do you advise to clients? I'll give you another tip that I got from one of my realtors about this top 10 list. But what do you advise to clients when they're thinking about, like, they're starting the journey, right? And Vegas is a little different where it's a lot of track housing, right? Yeah. So I mean, you're going to get,
we don't have as a unique.
Yeah, you're not going to get nearly as unique of a distribution of type of houses. In LA, Los Feliz, Burbank, Glendale, it's like you can see things that are wildly different on the same block. So when you start to advise a client of like, hey, we're going to start looking at houses, but here's the thing that you need to think about so that you're mentally comfortable offering on house A versus house B. Like, how do you start to get buyers to conceptualize what they're looking for, what they might like, what they should be comfortable with versus, hey, I'll sell my firstborn for this one.
Yeah.
You know, how do you talk to buyers about that?
Well, I think for us, first location, right? Are you a Henderson? Are you a Summerlin? Are you a Northwest? Figure that out first, because a lot of the homes are the same in all those communities, but figure out where you want to kind of put your home base, because they are vastly different. You know, I say I'm a Green Valley Henderson guy. I don't do roundabouts. That's the Summerlin people.
Right. I fucking hate roundabouts.
Right. I just can't live in Summerlin. So from then we go, what's your plan for the next 5 years? Because let's realistically think, let's build into this house for 5 years. You don't want just what's going on right now. And I think a lot of people during COVID realized that.
Yeah.
That they didn't have everything in the house that they really wanted. And when they're stuck in it for 6 months, it means something. So are you planning to have kids? Don't get that 3-bedroom. You know, then you need an office and your in-laws are there all the time because it's just not going to work for you. So make your must-haves and must-not lists. So you have your location, must-haves, must-nots, and then we can work from there. Mm-hmm. You know, people have weird quirks of what they want and don't want.
Right.
And if you don't figure that out if it's just you got to have a talk with yourself. Self, what do I like?
Right.
Self, what I don't like. Go to model homes. You're not saying you're going to buy a new home, but there's a lot of things to see in those model homes because they upgrade the hell of them sometimes and they have the base model. So figure that stuff out. I think if you just have a really good list of what you want, know your location, we can figure that out. And then from there, before you go look, you got to go get with a lender and figure out what you can actually afford.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason to fall in love with a house that you can't afford or give stuff up because you think you can't afford it.
Yeah.
Because it goes both ways.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Same thing in LA or in Vegas. Like $100,000 makes a world of difference.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people, $100,000, whole lot of money. Like that's a lot of zeros, especially for somebody who maybe the biggest purchase in their entire life has been a $30,000 car. You know, and now you're talking about a product that we're measuring in $100,000 increments. It's a big deal. And when you talk about, well, that's $650 a month, and about a fourth of that you'll get to write off on your taxes. So we're talking about $400 or $500. $400 or $500 a month, still a lot of money, but maybe not a lot of money if you've eked into this lifestyle creep where you're spending $300 a month at Starbucks.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Do you want to own a house or do you want to brew your own coffee? Or
exactly. Or do you want to be comfortable in your house, or you just want to get into something?
Right. And what are you seeing right now as like a trend in Vegas? Is it bigger and better? Are people looking for smaller and downsizing? Like, it seems like every time I go on Instagram, it's an opposite trend from one reel to the next, where it's like everybody wants a giant house with a home office and a podcast studio and outdoor space, and they're not going to buy unless they can, because of COVID, live there full-time 24/7, 365. And then other people are like, no, this new generation wants experiential living. They want their house to be more like a hotel room where they're there so, they're there so infrequently that they're out traveling and they're experiencing stuff. So they want a smaller, cheaper, minimalist type house.
I think you bring up a good point. I think it's generational, right? What phase in life are you? So I don't think we really have a trend here right now. I mean, we're all over the place because we are booming in the luxury space right now in Vegas with everyone moving here.
Yeah.
On the Instagram, you're seeing these big luxury homes. Like, yeah, that's what everyone's getting. There's not that many of them here.
Right.
So yeah, you're seeing a lot of that, but you're right. Most of our stuff is tract homes, smaller lots. Builders are trying to put as many as they can into a single development. North Los Angeles just passed or just got proposed their ordinance for tiny home communities. They basically put the same ordinance as mobile home communities because they were talking about trash receptacles and distance and all that stuff. So it's both spectrums.
Yeah.
And I think North Las Vegas is actually the first one that's actually done any sort of proposals for those tiny homes. So I think we'll start seeing those pop up.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly.
So when we're talking about tiny homes, are you thinking like 600 square feet?
Those are like 500-600 square feet. Like,
yeah, you can buy
beds
for $100,000.
Beds up here, your kitchen's down here, your couch is there.
That would be wild to see if that sells.
I think it will.
Yeah, I think so, right? Because like you figure if you can sell those for $150 or $200 and just cookie cutter them out, there's a lot of dudes that I know from the jiu-jitsu gym that have, working class jobs and they're paying $1,500 a month.
Well, apartments have gone through the roof here.
Yeah. So you get a $200,000 tiny home, that's a win. You own your space at least.
Yeah. It's an investment in yourself.
Yeah. Smart. What are the questions I'm forgetting to ask, either about real estate, growing up in Vegas, doing all the crazy stuff that you've done as a paramedic in the fire department? Like,
well, that's a whole different day.
That's a different podcast, right? The wild northern side of Vegas.
Yeah. When I retire, we'll go through all those stories.
Okay, perfect. When you retire, we'll talk about fire stories, crazy fire stories. What about on the real estate side? What if you were a realtor looking at 2024? And you're like, okay, rates will probably get lower, but not low enough to dramatically change the course of your business, right? We're not hitting 2020 interest rates again where just everybody's going to buy a house. You're going to have some headwinds on like the professionalism of having to represent yourself as a buyer and justify your fee. Like if you're a realtor and you're thinking about, all right, I want to construct a really good business and I want to make a couple $100,000 so I have a great lifestyle for me and my house or me and my family and make enough money so I can afford these houses that I'm showing. What's your advice as a leader in the real estate community?
Okay, I'll give you a couple. One, find a good mentor, coach, or pay for a coach if you don't have that. Invest in yourself, number one. 2, read, study the buyer's broker agreement, and get very good at a $15,000 buyer broker consultation. If you can't sell yourself and prove to somebody that you're worth $15,000, it's going to be a rough year for you. 3, always work on your seller's presentation because hopefully if you have buyers, you have sellers. And I would say finally, take these next 3 months, 3-ish months, get through Valentine's Day to really build yourself because I think that's when we're going to kind of break open. So take this slower time to figure out your systems to be successful the rest of the year.
I love that. And that just brings up so many follow-up questions about specifically follow-up. Like, I feel like the greatest realtors that I know are the ones that are just super diligent at follow-up, right? Mm-hmm. It blows my mind how many agents work at KW and have never read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent.
I've never worked on it. I've read that book.
Yeah, exactly. Every good realtor I know has read that book because it's like, it might be a little antiquated. You might have to switch out like postcards for social media posting, but it's like...
Actually, fun fact. I just listened to a podcast the other day. On average, people are getting less than one piece of advertising in their mailbox a day now.
Oh.
So if you want to go back to the old school.
What's old is new, right?
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, so, do the postcards. But, like, if you just follow the touch system in Millionaire Real Estate Agent, it will work. You will make $1 million as a real estate agent. So how are you coaching people to get past their fear of following up? I coach loan officers and they're like, well, I don't know what to tell realtors when I call them once a month. I'm like, just talk to them like a human being, man. This is just like a relationship business. What? So how are you coaching your people to follow up?
I said, if your clients are your friends, it's an easy phone call.
Right.
Find touch points. For us, holidays, we have our big Luke Day thing in June. That's my number one time for my touch point.
Luke Day?
Luke Day. So, sidebar, my brokerage next home, we have a mascot named Luke. He's a French bulldog. Not a real French bulldog. He's orange. June 15th is his birthday. Every year throughout the country, we celebrate it by doing some sort of event for charity.
Oh, cool.
So, like last year, I held a big event at
Luke Day. I like that.
At a Italian restaurant. Everyone got food and beer on me. Just donated to our local or our national charity, which is
there's my old man alarm, by the way.
Nice.
I just went on to take my vitamins. That's how old I'm getting. I have to set
fair.
an evening alarm for
I have
my
checklists
vitamins.
to make sure I do it. So.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. It's okay, so Luke Day, you did a big charity event.
Yeah, but it's a good touch point for I tell all my agents. It's not for me. It's for the brokerage. So use my day that I'm paying for you to call everyone in your database. They've used you. They know you're a realtor. They don't know you're a realtor. Hey, Bob, how you doing? Just to let you know, I work for this awesome brokerage. They're doing this big charity event on June 15th. It's free for you to come. Come have a drink and get some food. Hang out with some dogs that are here to help the disabled. How are you, by the way? Did you even know I'm doing real estate? So just find those touch points. Don't make it awkward. Don't call on Monday morning at 9 o'clock. Hey, Bob, how are you? I'm at work. Cool. So do you know I'm in real estate?
Right.
I just tell everyone, find touch points what makes it you more comfortable. Right? When would you want a phone call? What is something you would take time out of your day to listen to? Don't be salesy.
Yeah.
Be a human.
It's so funny. I have this training video that I send out, and I'm like, hey, the script is you call them and you say, hey, Beau, did I catch you at a bad time? And then they say, no, Scott, what's up? And then the rest of the script is be a fucking human.
Yeah.
Just be like, hey, I know you broke your leg. How's the recovery going? Are you running yet? You playing pickleball again? And by the way, how does somebody like you, in great shape, professional fireman, which to me is kind of like being a professional athlete because you guys have to be in shape to like save people. How do you break your leg playing pickleball, bro?
Ego. So I was playing pickleball against my dad, who was a collegiate tennis player.
Oh, you're already fucked.
He was kicking my ass. Like 15-1, 15-1, 15-2, 15-4. I thought I was on the track. He's like, let's go home. I'm tired. I'm like, one more. I'm making my comeback. First point in, he put it up. I jumped up because I was going to smash the old man in the face with a pickleball. Came down the wrong side of my ankle. He likes to remind me that he finished the point.
Nice.
Won the point. I drove myself to the hospital. After I got morphine, I had to get a ride home. So he came and picked me up, which is kind of him wearing a pickleball shirt. So that's the kind of family I grew up in.
That's awesome, man. Well, I hope for a speedy recovery. I want to close with 3 questions. One that's real estate related. If you had to look into your crystal ball, I'll give you the 3 questions so you can ruminate on it. If you had to look into your crystal ball, and we'll just talk about Clark County, but I think Clark County is pretty indicative of the rest of the nation. Overall values up or down, and if so, how much on a percentage wise? Number 2, what are you most looking forward to going into 2024? Because you got a lot going on, brokerage, obviously building your career in the fire department. Maybe you're going to be on the bomb squad. I don't know. And then number 3, favorite movie and why? Because that's what I always finish with is people's favorite movie. So do you think property value is up or down? If so, can you assign a possible percentage? What are you most looking forward to? And what's your favorite movie?
I'm going to say up 5% year over year.
Okay.
What am I most looking forward to this year? Actually, after breaking my ankle, I want to do another Ironman. It's like my comeback tour.
You've done an Ironman before?
I've done 3.
Like a full Ironman?
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit, man. Okay, wait, we got to dive into this now. Sorry, we're going to extend the podcast a few minutes. Going through them, what does the training look like? Is it all mental? Is it all physical? Like, I felt if you held a gun to my head or to my kid's head, I could do one of the 3. I could do a 100-mile bike ride tomorrow. I might die at the end, but I could run a marathon tomorrow. It'd be very slow, but I could muscle through. I could swim 2 miles or whatever it is. There is a 0% chance with a lot of training that I could get through all 3.
So that's my favorite thing about it. Like, I grew up a runner. It's the mental aspect of it. So the training of it sucks. It's 20, 30 hours a week, but on race day, it's at least 20% physical, 80% mental.
Really?
Yeah. The swim is the swim. Everyone, because you start out the mass swim, you get through it, right? Then you get on the bike, and that's your pain cave, right? Because you're alone, because you can't draft anyone, so you can't be talking to anyone for the 6 or 7 hours you're on the bike for. So all you're thinking about is nutrition Am I going too hard? Am I going too slow? Did I miss my water? Like, and then on the run, that's your time to finish.
What's the hardest part? You said the bike's like where you're kind of in the
tedious.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't listen to music. It's not allowed.
You're not allowed to listen to music?
No. So you're just out there with your thoughts for
fuck the Iron Man. I'm over this now. Like,
but like the last one I did was in Cozumel and it was beautiful.
Okay.
Still just a lot of time by yourself and your own thoughts. And when you have this much going on, that's a lot of thoughts and a lot of hours.
All right. So all mental and the bike is the hardest part.
Yeah, I mean, you're hurting by the run, but I think just the tediousness of the bike, at least on the run, you can suffer with people and you can talk to them.
Right.
Like, man, this sucks, huh?
But the bike, you can't create like one of those Peloton things and like ride together or anything?
No drafting. You have to keep 3 bike links in between.
Oh, how miserable. So what happens when you go to pass somebody? You just got like 10 seconds to pass them or something?
Yeah, I can't remember, 10 or 15 seconds. And as soon as your wheel breaks, then technically they have to drop back before they can try repassing you.
Holy cow, man. And for how many weeks are you training 20 to 30 hours a week?
I mean, when I'm not hurt, I'm usually working out 6 days a week anyways. So right. That's just extending your work. So, I mean, most people do like a 16 or 18 week block for it.
So you're like 5 months, 30 hours a week. Oh my God, that's a lot. 2,600 hours of training. And how long?
It's a good time to listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah. What's your best finish time?
10 hours and 27 minutes.
That's awesome. Wow. We're gonna have a guy on the podcast. He's a lender at the company that I work for. I think he's run 27, 28 Ironmans, and he's won like 3 of them.
Wow.
And I'm like, did you win the Ironman, like the Hawaii one? He's like, no. He's like,
he wouldn't be doing lending.
Yeah. He's like, no, the temperature got me. I think for his age group, he came in like second or third. But I mean, like just.
Yeah, they got a part in Hawaii called the Energy Lab where you're just on black pavement in the sun and.
You're just dying.
You're just dying.
Yeah. But I mean, for him to finish that many Ironmans and finish like, ranked in his age group, and he had sponsors and all that. He was a professional. This is what he did for a living. I'm like, so there was a time in your life where you were like one of the fittest men in the world. I'm like, how did you get into lending? He's like, that's a crazy story, but we'll go.
Yeah, you'll get over it.
We'll go over it in the podcast. All right, cool. So you're looking forward to the Ironman. That's awesome. And then favorite movie and why?
Any of the old school Adam Sandler movies. I know it's broad, but I'm not a big movie guy. Like, I don't have the attention span for them. But if I see like a Happy Gilmore or any of those, I'll sit there and just watch the whole thing and laugh the whole time.
I'm the same way. So embarrassing. Like the
like Billy Madison with the soap, like totally gets me every time.
Every time. The cameo by Chris Farley where he's like, that Vanessa Vaughn, her and I got it on. He's like, no, you didn't. He's like, but I had a friend. Yeah, he's like, no, you didn't. He's like, but you can imagine. And I probably replayed that line with my friends in the Army 500 times, right? We'd see some good-looking girl at the bar, and I'd be like, her and I. And you're like, no, you didn't. It's like, yeah, but my friend from the 2nd Division, he did. No, he did.
Yeah,
that's
all
good
that stuff is, they're all classics.
That's awesome, man. Well, hey, dude, I appreciate you being on the podcast. I want to have you back on like middle of the year or something so we can just talk about where real estate is. Hopefully,
yeah, absolutely. I'd love it. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great. I'm really interested to see how this whole lawsuit, works itself out. And I think for lenders personally, it's going to be a good thing because I think the professional buyers that stick around, they're just going to have a deeper relationship.
The professionalism of the whole industry is going to get better from this. It's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for
everyone.
The best agents is going to be rough for. Because, like, my mom's been in for 29 years. She didn't use a buyer-broker agreement until I made her when we started. And she complained for weeks.
Oh, that's fun to tell your mom what to do, though.
Right? But, so, I mean, it's going to be pain for everyone, but it's going to be good for the profession, I think.
Cool, man. We'll have you back to give us an update on how it's going.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thanks, man.